All right. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Metal Blade live series. It's been about a month since we've done one of these things, middle of December. Took a little break for the holidays and the new year, and we're glad to be back. Glad to be back. And we have a very special guest today, Mr. Adam Zaars from Tribulation. How's it going, man?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing very good. Thank you very much.
That's good to hear. How's immediate question, get it out of the way.
Yeah.
How's Sweden been handling the COVID pandemic?
Controversial topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In a way. I mean, I just read, scrolling through the news here,
hmm
that the it spread over 27% worse than, or I don't know what the equivalent is, CDC
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
of their worst scenario. So it's pretty bad.
That's rough, man. That's rough. It's
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
be. I've always wondered like how different it must be in a smaller country, because obviously over here in the States, it's such a huge country.
Yeah,
Uh,
a
you know,
continent
yeah,
almost.
pretty much, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like, a lot of my friends in European countries, it's always interesting to see how each country is handling it different. And then you have a place like New Zealand, right,
Mm.
which is like pretty much back to
Yeah, yeah,
normal at this point. Um,
exactly.
so it's always pretty crazy. But in more positive news, you
Mm.
just became a dad again. Congratulations on that. That's very exciting.
Thank you so much.
Um, was
It's
that
been a little over a month now.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who he had a kid like right before all this started. Um, what was it like going into a pregnancy and a birth process in the middle of all this crazy pandemic stuff? Were there any particular challenges or obviously it's good you get to spend a lot of time at home with the newborn, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but
Otherwise, I should have been going on tour
yeah,
right
right.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what was that like? Was it any easier or different than previously?
No, it wasn't easier, but it wasn't that special, I guess. We, of course, had to keep my girlfriend Susanna
Yeah.
away from people, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and then I could never, follow her to any of the, I don't know what you call it in English, but when you do the ultrasound and all
Right,
that.
like the checkups and all the health
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest difference, I
Yeah.
guess. And then, giving birth. Luckily, I could come.
Yeah.
I no symptom free.
Right.
So that wasn't. I mean, even if I had like, if my nose was running or something, I couldn't have been there. So I
Right.
was lucky enough to be able to do that, I guess.
That's
And we weren't in Stockholm. We moved away from Stockholm, so um, the the hospital was quite relaxed, I guess. Not
yeah.
many people at all. So that
Yeah.
was a big difference since our last kid.
Nice. Nice. Well, that's awesome, man. Congratulations again, and I'm excited for
Yes.
you. Every time someone has a baby, I'm just like, "Oh, having babies." Uh,
Yeah, it's a good
um,
time.
well, we already actually have some questions coming in from the audience, Mr. Popular over here. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's a
Yeah.
so, uh, Alan or Alan asks, "That's a very cool painting behind you. Who did it, and are you an art fan in general?"
Who did it? It's a Swedish artist
Okay,
called Arnold. Hans Arnold. And the title for it would be translated as the bird, um, the bird girl, I suppose. He was a famous artist in Sweden. He did used to do like horror themed pictures for this magazine that was really big. And then he also did a cover for ABBA once.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the album, but a really strange style, but I always liked it.
Nice.
And yes, I am a fan of art in general,
clearly.
or very particular art, I guess.
Yeah, I have the same kind of hang-ups with art. I'm a big fan of certain periods. Certain periods really do it for me, but not a big fan of like contemporary art, and a lot of modern art doesn't really do it for
me. No, I'm the same. I am.
So Kimberly Burrows wants to know, what was it like to work with Tom Dalton? For those of you watching who don't know, Tom mixed the record. He also has worked with bands like Ghost and Rammstein. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, working with Tom was great.
That's awesome.
He's, I mean, we met him on the tour we did with Ghost, and I think he came out to like 3 shows, and we just got along really well. He's a really easygoing guy in general, just to hang out with. But then the same can be said about working with him. I think he. A person that doesn't get offended if you have a different opinion than him regarding ideas and sounds and all that. So fantastic, lovely person, and a professional, I suppose.
That's always a good trait for a producer to have. Is something we've talked about a lot on this series, is like the importance of having a producer who will give you positive feedback, create constructive criticism, but also not try to like completely take control of the project. So having someone who's like got a balance where it's like, oh, let's do this, but let's is also willing to hear feedback themselves is
yeah. But the producer was Jamie Elton, though.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So this kind of ties into a later question, so I will ask it later, but it's another question from a fan. But big news recently with the band, obviously, has been Jonathan's departure. Seems like an amicable split up, but a lot of fans think of him as a vital member. How do you feel about replacing him, and what do you think will change now, if anything?
It could have been very difficult to replace him.
Right.
And my first thinking when he dropped the news was that we probably couldn't continue at all, because he's been such a big part of everything, and about not only being in the band and playing in the band, but also creating the band.
Yeah.
So it could have been really difficult for us, but because Joseph, our new guitar player, because he agreed on doing it, it felt it felt good. Jonathan's suggestion was Joseph.
Okay.
We had been talking about what to do if this would ever happen, and we'd always been talking about Joseph. So if he hadn't agreed on doing it, things might have looked different, I guess. But
right
now that's not the case, and I of course things will be different. They're not the same person. The most obvious thing, I suppose, being in a live setting, he won't be mimicking Jonathan. He will have to find his own way.
Yeah.
But also, of course, with the music. But that's one of the reasons why we wanted Joseph. We've always admired his songwriting, and he's participated to some extent earlier as well. He did, or I guess I borrowed a few riffs from him for our second album, and then he also helped with the opening track of this album.
Okay.
In Remembrance. So he didn't write anything, but he gave me a lot of help in being able to finish the song.
Right. Well, it seems like there was already kind of like a chemistry there, before the split. So, how did your relationship with him come about? You mentioned that, Jonathan had recommended him, as part of his departure, but, like I said, it sounds like you guys had kind of like a pre-existing working relationship and creative chemistry beforehand. How did you guys all meet up?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I started my first band with Joseph.
Oh, okay.
When we were 13.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a band called Crypt.
Nice.
Very, very cool name, if you ask me.
That's a much better band name than my first band when I was 13, which I believe was called Roots of Evil. So, gotta love those.
Also pretty cool.
those 13-year-old brains, man. We're at our best. So to tie in the question that we have from a fan, from Alejandra Toro, she wants to know if all the members are part of the creative process, which also kind of ties into the member change up. Did you all share writing duties? And is your writing process going to be at all affected, moving forward?
Yeah, well, it's mostly been me and Jonathan.
Okay.
We've kind of split the writing 50-50, more or less.
Right.
And then everyone are participating to some extent. I won't. Oscar is a better drummer than I am. I can't drum at all, so I absolutely let him almost tell me what he should play. Yeah. Of course, I have some pointers. Maybe you should. I want this here and this here, but then he's the drummer, so he has the room, to express himself, and the same goes with Johannes.
Right.
So I guess it will affect the songwriting to some extent, or to a big extent, because he's been a big part of not only writing the songs, but with visuals as well.
Right.
But the visual aspect, I guess I'm not that worried about. I've done most of it in the past anyway, except for the covers.
Right.
And like I said, Joseph will absolutely be a part of writing songs as well. So I'm quite enthusiastic about it at the moment.
Right.
Not that Jonathan is not there anymore, but because it's almost become, to me at least, like lit a new spark of creativity in the band. So I kind of want to start writing a new album already.
So speaking of the aesthetic and the imagery and stuff, I have another question from a fan that kind of ties into something that I had here, is that you guys have a really unique aesthetic. Your art is very, it stands out for sure. And so Chris Thrash asks, I have noticed that your videos and imagery have a very specific style that obviously parallels the actual music. Do you have artists and people you always use when making your music? Do you keep imagery in mind? Feel like you kind of already answered that by saying that, you do a lot of it, but if you care to elaborate.
Yeah, of course. When looking back at when we started the band, and especially around the when we did our first album. I kind of see the band as two different things.
Right.
One being like a metal band, but it was almost like an art project to us as well. We always wanted to make everything ourselves, and we still do. And the only thing we don't do ourselves are the videos, actually.
Right.
That got mentioned in the question. Jonathan did the video for Melancholia when that came out, but apart from that, that's really the only time we've been relying on anyone else to do anything for us,
Right.
visually. That being the videos.
Right. And that's
Otherwise,
awesome,
we
though.
do it all ourselves.
That's awesome that it's all like kind of self-contained, because it really gives you that control over like the creative vision and, you know, the visual aesthetic and how
Yeah.
it all does tie into the music, and, you know, really makes it you know, both sides of the coin, you know, have consistency to them, because that's really a thing that a lot of people don't, you know, I think about, because it's usually done so well and seamlessly, is that it's like, you know, you can't just be a band that has music, you know what I mean? Like there has to be some kind of aesthetic that accompanies your music, and you know, really submerges the listener into that, you know, that setting that you're presenting,
Yeah,
and all that kind of stuff.
absolutely. I
Um,
agree.
and you know, Tribulation has always kind of done that. You know, you guys are, I'd say, a bit more magical and esoteric than the average band. Can you talk about music and its relationship to, you know, the otherworldly or the spiritual, or what kind of fuels that fire for you?
Yeah. I mean, music in general can be, you know, induce some kind of a religious experience. I'm sure many people have, you know, depending on what you define as a religious experience, I suppose. But I think many people will agree. And when it comes to Tribulation, I think it's always been a natural thing for us, you know, not to write lyrics about mundane things,
Right.
because it's, I mean, our idea with the music, apart from, again, being a metal band, has always been, ever since the first album, kind of what we summed up in the title to our new album, Where the Gloom Becomes Sound. That can really be said about what we've been trying to do with the music from way back,
Right.
and it's trying to express what we then termed gloom, or now termed gloom, but you know, what that is difficult to define. It's quite vague. I guess it was some sort of a feeling or an atmosphere that we felt that we could find in other pieces of creativity, you know, in movies, in paintings, in other kinds of music as well.
Right.
And that's, and you know, to accompany that lyrically, we just always found it more fitting to write about otherworldly topics. And I remember specifically when I heard, I think it was, I think it's Dawn of the Angry by Morbid Angel from
Oh, okay.
Domination.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a line where he says, "My finger's on the trigger," or something.
Right.
And I remember when hearing it, and obviously talking about a gun or something, to me, it felt so wrong for a band like Morbid Angel to sing about something as worldly as as that. So
Right.
maybe that like a trauma that that
Yeah.
affected me.
I'm never gonna write like that.
And I don't have a problem with that now at
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
Um, I love the band, love that album as well, and the song.
yeah.
So
No, I totally understand. I've had conversations like this with other vocalists and other lyricists about how it's when trying to, especially in metal, because right, metal is a very it's a very emotionally intact genre of music.
yeah,
Metal provides an experience that a lot of other genres oftentimes kind of fail to capture because of how aggressive and loud and fast and just high energy it can be. And so to water that down with lyrical content that just doesn't really mean anything is kind of like a disservice to the experience
mm,
that metal provides. Um,
yeah,
so it's
because it is an experience, right?
yes, exactly. And so it's
Yeah,
important to make sure that your lyrics are always true to yourself and always true to
yeah,
what it is that you're trying to encapsulate with your art and your music. So
yeah.
that's awesome to hear. So speaking of the new album,
Hmm.
obviously have to touch on that a little bit, where the Gloom becomes sound, coming out at the end of the month, January 29th.
Yeah.
um what can you tell us about the recording of the album? Did you know ahead of time that it was going to be Jonathan's last when recording it? I've heard you guys rehearse in the studio. Do you do anything while recording to maintain that like natural kind of classic analog feel that you guys have? I know lots of bands have like studio rituals, that they kind of get into. If you have anything like that you want to share with the listeners, anything would be appreciated.
Um, yeah, it was. We were in the studio for quite a long time,
Right.
um, from April 20th to about not really 2 months later, but almost.
Wow.
But we didn't record for all that time. Like you said, we did start by rehearsing the songs, and not all the songs were finished, so we wanted to get the chance to change anything and to finish the songs. Not all the songs got finished in those days either, but it was a good way to start. Just getting the big room that we were in, the way we wanted it, and then just having those first days. It was I guess it was the first time we rehearsed with our own mixes and all stuff like that. Never done that before. It's usually just amps, you
Yeah.
know. So that was a new experience in a way, and made us able to hear everyone, and so on. And the whole experience was strange, of course, because of COVID,
Right.
obviously. Jonathan recorded most of his guitars from his house, and we tried to be as few people as possible, I guess, in the studio at the same time, and that was actually quite good, and not everyone has to be there while someone's recording a guitar or something.
Yeah.
So that was a fairly good thing, I'd say. And we always had, like I said earlier, we had Jamie Elton as a producer, always looking after us, I guess, making sure we did what we had to do, keeping us in check,
Yeah.
and all that. And we get along really well. He's been our front of house recently, so we've done a few tours with him. We speak the same language. We understand each other.
Yeah.
and so that was it was great to work with him. Really, he really helped us, I think, with both the music and like I said, being able to just actually doing it.
Yeah.
And no, we didn't know that Jonathan was going to leave. We didn't know that until he told us
Right.
in maybe October, November, something. I can't speak for him, of course, but I think it was quite spontaneous in one way, but in another way, I think he probably knew this was going to happen sooner or later.
Right.
And I guess we were all kind of feeling that this could happen. So no, we didn't know that, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, I've been in similar situations with my band where it's like someone's last album, you don't really know that it's going to be their last album, but you can always kind of feel when someone is on their way out. You know what I mean? There's a certain level of resignation that even if they don't necessarily mean to put that forward or present themselves in that way. It's just kind of something that's present. Once a person makes up their mind with something, it definitely does carry out into the rest of their actions. But at the same time, it's also, I think, cathartic for those people when they do those last performances or they do those last albums. And if you're lucky enough to have lucky enough to have that captured in a studio setting where it's just like that last hurrah, it can really add something kind of special to the music. So obviously sad to see him go.
This was really but this was really his swan song.
Yes.
In a way, because he wrote a lot of the album. He wrote 7 of the songs.
Right.
And I only did 3 for this one.
Right.
So in a sense, I guess that was a pretty good thing. He was able to get the last out of him for Tribulation.
Right.
And I'm sure many fans will appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few more questions. The questions from the fans are piling up here, so I want to get a few of those addressed.
Of course.
So Jansen Hanneline wants to know, what are you looking forward to most this year? Also, what's your favorite track from the upcoming release?
What am I looking forward to? Well, it all depends on what's going to happen, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a tour booked in Europe.
Yep.
With Bölzer and Malessas in September. So I'm looking forward to that, but I guess we can never be sure that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Other than that, I guess just getting Joseph properly into the band, trying some songwriting, I suppose, with him. I've already started. My creativity comes and goes, and
right.
Sometimes it's really intense, and at the moment it's quite intense. So it could be because of all this.
Right.
So I'm sure we will try something, and what that ends up being, I have no idea. But
yeah,
I'm still looking forward to doing that.
That does sound exciting.
What was the other question?
The other half of that question. Oh God, where did it go? Oh, favorite track from the upcoming release.
Favorite track. Well, I had a few different favorite tracks, I suppose.
That question always bothers me when I get asked, what's your favorite track? That's like making me choose between my favorite kid, my favorite pet. Like, they're all special in their own different ways.
Yeah, but and for me, it's also, some songs are closer to my heart.
Right.
But another song might be my favorite track.
Yeah. Yeah,
in a
absolutely.
way. And
Yeah.
and the one closest to my heart would be the first one, In Remembrance, because even though that was the one Joseph helped finalize,
Hmm.
and even though it was finished to get it finished, uh, the rest of it was it just happened.
Yeah.
All of a sudden there was a song.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think it's Leviathans or Inanna, maybe.
Nice, nice. Well, looking forward to hearing all of those for sure. S-
Yeah, I mean, it's not even out.
yeah, exactly. But it's exciting. It's exciting to know what your favorites are, especially as a listener. You
Yeah.
can go into it being like, "Oh, this is Adam's favorite song." Dennis Pluskota wants to know what are the main differences between the upcoming album and previous albums?
Yeah, I've had that question many times, and I can never really give a good answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's when comparing it to Down Below, I guess what I can say is that when we wrote the music to that album and when we recorded it, Oscar was our drummer. He was really new in the band, and he had to learn all our old songs because it was just before the summer festivals were happening.
Hmm.
So it was a really intense period. And so when we started doing this one, and when we recorded this one, we'd been playing like, I don't know, 100 shows or something.
Yeah.
And so I think we'd become more of a band, a proper band again.
Yes.
So, and hopefully you can hear that, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't really know what else to say, really. It's in line with our latest, at least our latest two albums, I would
Right.
say.
Right.
Yeah.
Same person, Dennis Pluskota. He also wants to know, what are your main inspirations besides music for the art that you create, from music through lyrics to visuals. Where do you draw that inspiration from? I mean, you kind of mentioned a little bit, this change of members has kind of created like a creative spark and stuff like that. But is there anything when you're in those creative doldrums, so to speak, that you kind of turn to for inspiration?
Yeah. I mean, it could be anything,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. But movies, books. Um, well, I had this question, a similar question the other day, asking me to name one, piece of, a painting or a movie or something that could define Tribulation.
Right.
And what I said was that if you combine Werner Herzog's Nosferatu
Yeah.
with Umberto Eco's book, The Name of the Rose, I think you get pretty close to what inspires me the most.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I also take a lot of inspiration from books and from reading different writing and poetry in particular. But oftentimes certain novels will strike me a certain way, certain authors and the way that they write and create their settings and the decoration, I guess, that they put on some of their writing.
Exactly.
Haruki Murakami is a huge one for me. The author of
Yeah,
IQ
I have a
84.
friend who loves him. Yeah.
Super fantastic
I haven't read
author.
anything though.
Yeah, IQ 84. I would check it out. It very much
Yeah.
falls into the dystopian metal aesthetic for sure, but it has so much character to it. Do you have any like favorite authors, other than who you mentioned, that?
Well, it's what I keep coming back to, I guess, and it's
Right.
such a cliche, but it's Tolkien would
Yeah.
absolutely be one. Uh,
Hey,
that I just quite recently reread the trilogy, and they're quite boring sometimes actually, but for some reason I just love that universe.
there's this writing thing that Tolkien will do sometimes that is often found in religious scriptures, which is so funny to me because the Lord of the Rings at this point might as well be a fucking religious scripture.
Yeah, yeah.
But he does this thing where when he needs to eat up pages, especially in the Silmarillion, he'll be like, this guy, son of this guy, son of this guy, son of this guy, son of this guy, who then went on to form an alliance with this guy, son of this guy, son of this guy, son of this guy, and just like on and on and on. And those passages, I find myself being like, okay, just go, let's just get out of here, get back to the story.
Absolutely, but that's also what I really like about it. And when I did read the trilogy recently, I kept, I found this wiki, Lord of the Rings wiki, something. So I would search like every name, and there's like this full backstory to each and everything you can imagine. So I guess he knew what he was doing, but it gets really dull sometimes.
It does. The lore is so rich. That's a good way to get through those passages. That's a great idea, is to be like, okay, this guy, son of this guy. Well, who is this guy? All right, let's find out and go look it up and actually feel like you're reading a story instead of just a history book. Yeah, Tolkien's great. I just bought they just remastered the movies, the films, Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy in like true 4K, and I bought it, and it came with this little ring of power on a chain, and I'm just like, just nerded out so hard. It was just like, oh my god, so the one ring. Well, that's awesome. So I have a couple other questions from fans. Let me see these. So Kimberly Burrows again. She has been told that you wear a Manchester United cap sometimes. Are you a fan? And are you a fan of the Manchester music scene? She also says hello from Manchester, though currently in Leeds.
Yeah, I am. I try to watch every game I can, to be honest. Yeah. And we are at the top of the table right now, actually.
Nice.
Last night. So I'm a happy camper.
I've been, man. So I'm a little bit of a sports nut myself, but I'm more into American football than actual football. And I have been trying for years to like dive in and get into it and like become, a soccer fan, as we call it in the States. And try as I might, I always find myself jumping into the middle of the season, and it's like, it's so overwhelming, man. There are so many teams. Like, it is such a deep sport that every time I try to get into it, I'm just like, oh man, I don't even know where to begin. So maybe you can give me some advice.
Pick a team. Pick a team.
All right. It's always a good place to start.
That's what I do. I don't really watch any other games than Man United or the national team.
I don't even know if the U.S. has a soccer team. Do we have a soccer team?
Yeah, you do.
Okay. Are they any good? Probably not.
The women are better.
Yes.
They're like the best in the world. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to. Maybe I'll get into women's soccer instead of the traditional one. So, what else do I have here? So, we've talked a lot about your art and what inspires you and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any favorite albums that came out in 2020, or anything that you're looking forward to in 2021?
I didn't really listen to almost anything, I think, but I did listen to our old drummer Jacob's band, Second Son. They released an album called Kampen går vidare in Swedish, which would be like The Struggle Continues.
Right.
And I can really recommend that. It's like proggy rock heavy metal mixture.
Nice.
That's really unique, I'd say. You can tell in like a second that it's him who's written the song, which I really admire.
Right.
So
right.
I can definitely recommend that.
Nice.
And I have no idea if what I'm looking forward to hearing, to be honest. Yeah.
Man, I find myself succumbing to that same syndrome any year that I'm writing an album. I just like don't listen to a whole lot of outside music because I'm so just like in the process of writing my own music that it's hard for me to veer away from that and indulge in other people's art. But I usually the upside to that is that then I have, you know, like a whole year of catch up to play where I can, you know, go back and be like, oh shit, this band released an album that I was totally unaware of. Let's listen to this and, you know, get excited
and
for
I
it
think
like it's new.
I'm more of an you know, heavy metal archaeology, you know. I like to find old stuff that I haven't listened to.
Right.
More I'd say than new music, which is a fairly dull way to say thing to say, but it's still true.
Yeah. I find I find little nuggets of both, but I listen to a lot of music outside of metal. Like a friend of mine just showed me this like electronic dance thing from 2012 that I was like, wow, I can't believe this came out in 2012 because it still is like so up to speed with stuff that's coming out, you know, this last couple months, and I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. So it's always really cool to find stuff like that kind of across genres where it's just like this pioneering type of stuff. I mean, you know, flashback to, you know, what, like 15 years ago in 2005 when the metal community rediscovered Cynic, and they were just like, who is this band? This came out in 1991. What is this? Like, and it was such a profound discovery for so many people that like they came out with another album. They wrote Trace to Nair right after that. So, you know, it's always cool finding those hidden gems that are sometimes overlooked when they come out. But you know, well, I've kept you for close to an hour, so I will let you go. But thank you so much, Adam, for hanging out and talking with us. For those of you who are just tuning in, this is Adam from Tribulation. They have an album coming out where the gloom becomes sound at the end of this month, January 29th. Make sure to check that out. You guys also actually have a video coming out, right, on Friday, on this upcoming Friday. So definitely keep posted for that. That was I believe a Claudio Marino video, so should be very visually striking. Excited to see that. Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to you know, say or leave the fans with or anything like that before we go?
No, well, I guess check the album out.
Yes.
when it gets out. If you haven't heard us already, then absolutely check it out. Yes. And thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. For those of you who watched and are interested in learning more about Tribulation, you can follow them at the Instagram and Facebook links that are mentioned right below us here. Definitely make sure to do so and check out their new album, Where the Gloom Becomes Sound, on January 29th. Adam, thank you so much, man. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you. My pleasure. Good way to come back from our little month-long break of episodes over the holidays. So thank you a ton. And to everybody watching.
This is the first one.
Yeah, first one back. First one of the new year, too. So.
Cool.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, everybody watching, thank you so much. As always, your viewership is much appreciated. Follow Metal Blade Records if you do not already across social media platforms. And we will see you next Wednesday.